Hey, everybody, welcome to Security Awareness Training. That means two things. Number one, it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, so we're doing this every week. And number two, it is Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm looking outside here in Seattle, and I can kind of see maybe a little bit of sun, which is pretty fantastic. So I'm
I'm
glad that
happy
you're.
it's hoodie weather, man. What are you talking about? Sun can go away.
Oh, you Pacific Northwesterners. So
Mhm.
anyway, I'm so glad that you're here joining us for security awareness training. You know, this started about a year ago, a year and a week ago, where it was mid-pandemic. You remember we were all hiding in our basements, and except for Mike, who's never done that. And we were talking to some customers, and they were saying, you know, there are just so many things I haven't gotten to that I usually do for security, because everybody went home and remote work and pandemic. And we're like, you know what? Let's just start doing security awareness training for free every Friday. And we thought we'd get like 5, 6, 7 people per training, maybe 20, maybe 30. We've had we've had more than 2,000 people go through this training at this point. And it is pretty fantastic. And so thank you very much for being here. So a couple of things to know. My name is Jake Milstein. I run the events for Critical Insight. We defend companies against cyber criminals, evildoers, ne'er-do-wells, terrorists, whatever we want to call them. Stick with us until the end. You will get prizes. There will be a survey at the end, and at the end of the survey, you can get a gift card, or you can donate that gift card to a food bank. Also, being here, you're doing something good for the world. The fewer people who click on the bad links, the malicious links, maybe the bad guys will stop doing it, and we'll stop giving them money, and it'd be awesome. Also, some of you are getting credit for being here. And so, if your organization needs you to get a certificate for being here or something, just ask us and we'll make that certificate for you. Or if your boss says, hey, was that person there? We'll say, yeah, that person was there. Also, look in the chat. People have already started chatting there. And so that looks awesome. Chat away. Because one of the things we realized is that when we do this virtually, it's not rude to chat in the back. If you were in the same room as Mike, it would be rude if you were chatting in the back. But here,
That's
there's a
right.
chat on
But
the right.
here I invite heckling. So
That's right. That's right. That's right. Speaking of Mike, that's Mike. That's a picture of Mike pre-pandemic. He is the Critical Insight co-founder. He's the former CISO of Seattle. That means that he ran cybersecurity for the city of Seattle. He insists every week on putting in that he's a punk drummer. I take it out every week, but apparently it's important to him, as you can hear him drumming on his desk. Aleth Dennis is in the chat. She is a social engineering black belt. Really, her job is to trick people to letting them into the network. That's what she does for a living. We pay her for this, and she's pretty good at it. And one of the cool things is you can ask her about it in the chat. You can ask her any security questions you have. Something comes up, feel free, ask questions. And with that, now I hand the stage over to
okay.
the notorious Mike Hamilton.
Notorious. First of all, let me just say, Zachary, in the chat there. I don't know you. I already like you. So just here's headlines. We, for the last more than 10 years, have been putting out a daily digest, if you want to call it, of curated articles, somewhere 15 to 20. And it's just the title and the money quote and then the original link, which Jake is not allowed to track. Just so 5 minutes with coffee and you're tooled up for the day, you know what's happening. This is all from this week. So Checkpoint is saying there's a 40% uptick in this attack traffic. It's interesting. This company that routes text messages basically and handles billing information and location information and all kinds of things apparently was compromised for about 5 years. It's probably a nation state thing. The crooks are going down market now instead of, you know, knocking over a hospital with ransomware. They're starting to go to clinics and the third parties that do business with hospitals. So smaller and smaller targets are losing more and more money. And yeah, Google just warned a whole bunch of Gmail users that Russians have been trying to hack their accounts. So this is what's going on in the world now. These are every day you can see things like this. So it is important that we have this chat. Um, why are you here? Reason number one could be that you handle a bunch of records, intellectual property, customer information, whatever, that if you lose it is going to cost a lot of money to clean up after that. And you don't want that to happen. That's a perfectly good reason to be here. You may be in the public sector, which is, in my world, even more important. You have critical services that you run. Local governments, for example, water purification, waste treatment, traffic management, communications for law enforcement, public safety, counties, elections, 911, you know, that's pretty critical stuff. That's more than a letter from a credit card company that you're just going to throw in the trash. You know, if your toilet doesn't flush for 3 days, it's probably a disaster. You might be here because somebody told you to be here, which is fine too. And maybe you just heard that this was entertaining and you have nothing better to do at lunchtime if you're on the West Coast, which is fine too. We don't care. We're glad you're here. What we want you to take away from this, and I'm going to try not to be vociferous about this, but there's a few messages you got to take away. And the main one is this: gullibility has consequences. Okay, there's this big internet that was originally intended to trade files between universities and government labs, and all this stuff has been bolted onto it. And because we are capitalists and we basically run our economy on consumption, the internet wants to sell to you really badly. It also wants to steal from you, which we're going to talk a lot about today. And lately, it wants to manipulate your opinion. Okay. It's all this is going on. So don't trust the internet. Number two, your passwords are under attack. This is the easiest way to walk into a network. I'll explain a few ways that this happens, how you get broken into. But the easiest way is for you to give up a password to somebody, and they're just going to walk in. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot about passwords. Um, you need to know this bait is coming in all the time. It's coming in from every direction. It's coming in on your phone. It's coming in on your social media. It's your email. It's your personal email. It's everywhere. And increasingly, it's targeted. There's research that's gone into who are you? Where are you in the organization? Who do you report to? What kind of responsibility do you have? Anything to do with money? All this is going on. So hopefully you take away all of this. Now, before we get into the cyber nonsense, I think it's important to ground us in just a few things here. Number one, if you are in business, these are the things that mean something to you. Okay. Buffer overflow and SQL injection don't mean anything to you. Losing records when it costs, we know, about $200 per record to clean up after that because 50 states have data breach reporting statutes. Okay. You have a million records in a customer database. That's a potential liability of $200 million. If it's at 50% risk, that's a potential liability of $100 million. If you can spend $50,000 on controls and cut that risk in half again, hey, you want to take $50 million in risk reduction for a cost of 50,000? Maybe that's a good conversation to have. And that's the way to have the conversation. So you don't want to lose records. You don't want to have your money extorted, right? The dumb word we use is ransomware. We'll talk about that. But just outright theft, somebody getting you to pay an invoice that you have no business paying, or in different ways redirecting payment funds to their bank account instead of where it's supposed to go. It happens. And then the third one is just disruption for the sake of disruption. And depending on what sector you're in, this is increasing as well. And then the thing that is in the news a lot that you will read about, supply chain security, which is part of the executive order for the federal government to start paying attention to, the provenance of equipment, for example. All that has to do with this third party stuff, right? You are used as this island from which to hop to get to the actual victim, which may be your customer or your business associate. You don't want to be that jumping off point. These are the real outcomes to avoid from a business perspective. So let's keep that in mind. All right, now just little vocabulary. Probably heard about ransomware. Okay, again, it's extortion. And increasingly, the federal government is starting to call it terrorism, especially if it's leveled against one of our critical sectors: health, finance, water, energy, dams, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, this stuff is nasty. It it starts like every other thing starts. You're going to click on an attachment. You're going to give somebody a password. You're going to click on a link, and I'll show you what those things do. But something gets turned loose in your network, and it looks around, and this stuff is usually accompanied by, once it lands, some operator has interactive access to your network and is looking around, finding your backups and finding the systems that really make your business run. And then after they've been in there, average of about 70 days, wham, they pull the trigger and everything gets encrypted. It doesn't happen all at once. So there's plenty of signal there for you to be able to detect. That's another conversation, but don't let this happen to you. All right. Everything we're going to talk about today ends up in something like this. And remember, we said records disclosure, theft and extortion, or disruption, right? Well, this is clearly extortion. This is theft, business email compromise. On the low end, I will send you an invoice and you will pay it, even though I am not doing any business with you. Or you will get a message from the CEO saying, hey, I'm at a conference. I need you to buy me some gift cards. All I need is the serial numbers. Or the CEO will say, I need you to conduct an emergency wire transfer. At the high end, it's manipulating email accounts at your business partner who will communicate from a legitimate business account to you and say, we're changing our bank. Here's the new routing number. And that works a lot. So this is about a $2 billion a year problem. Heads up for this, okay? Anything having to do with money, anything that appears to come from the CEO and do something that's out of the ordinary, right? This is an aberrational event. Just verify it. Okay. If you didn't know, if you've never heard of this, cryptocurrency mining, it's probably not surprising. This is a little exotic. What it is, a cryptocurrency miner is trying to solve a cryptographic algorithm. And when it does, it spits out a coin, not physically spits out a coin, but it produces a crypto coin. And the miner is paid for that. Well, you can go rack up computers out where power is cheap and you can make them, work all day long and do this. And in fact, this is big business in China. In fact, an enormous amount of power goes to work doing this crypto mining. Um, it's cheaper to use compromised computers out there all over the world to do that mining for you, because then you don't have to pay for the power or the rack space or the network or anything like that. So this kind of comes and goes based on the value of cryptocurrency and what power costs, which right now, cryptocurrency's lost some lately, but still kind of at a high. So this stuff happens too. Again, malware hits your network. It can do a number of things, right? This is one of the things it can do. It can turn into ransomware, depending on what the operator on the other end has directed. So we have seen in our SOC operation, we have seen cryptocurrency mining occurring in a VoIP phone system, one of our customers. So it's not just computers, it's anything with a CPU. Okay. Now, let's just a couple of ways. You know that if you get an attachment and it is laden with malware and you click on it, that's one way to get this malware into your environment, right? Well, it can also break into your network. And this is almost an artifact of the 20th century, but it still happens. And the way it happens now is when somebody announces a vulnerability in a product. So what's a vulnerability? It's a way to break it. That's all it means. There is a way to break this. And if you break it in exactly the right way, you can make that computer do whatever you want it to. Well, some guy goes to Black Hat and DEF CON conferences and makes public these vulnerabilities that he's chained together that will take over Microsoft Exchange. And he's already worked with Microsoft on this, and Microsoft has sent out the patches, but it takes a while for people to get these patches in place, right? You can't just stop your email server. So what happens is, and was reported in the news, 5 minutes later, started scanning the internet for Microsoft Exchange servers on premise, okay? And I don't know if you read the news around then, but everybody with on-premise Microsoft Exchange that was exposed to the internet was crushed. And interestingly, recent reporting is that this was used primarily for espionage. This was not extortion, something like that. And the Chinese espionage apparently was wildly successful here. Okay, so how do you avoid break-ins? Well, it's just like when your phone updates. When something says we're vulnerable, here's a patch, you have to apply the patch. So if you're on a Microsoft computer, if you look down in the lower right there, it's got a little orange dot. Stop looking at me right now and reboot your computer, because that's what it's telling you to do. I've got my patches, now you need to reboot. Okay, your iPhone, it will get nasty with you, and it will just do it in the middle of the night if you don't handle it. Android and Linux, you're going to have to go and look at the settings and set auto update so you don't have to mess with it. And if you're on the IT team and something like that Microsoft Exchange vulnerability comes out, and all of a sudden the whole world goes, huh? And you hear that it's under active exploit, you've got to treat that as an incident. Stop what you're doing and get to work. Okay. All right. Number two, you can run into a compromised website. What is that? Okay. Here is a log message from a web server from the city of Seattle, actually Seattle Public Libraries. And it was from an application that was designed to show you your local library branch, or the ones on a map, so that you can go whatever one you wanted. And so we were getting bunch phone calls from users say, hey, I went to that site and then I got smacked. I got malware on my thing here. And so, we go find out what's going on. We scan it. We find the malware. We find this in the log file. And you're thinking to yourself, Mike, this is clearly hex encoded. And you're right. Okay. So let's hex decode it. And there's the real message. Okay. So we find this garbage in the log file. We hex decode it. And there you go. When you're looking at your local library branch, you're also getting a little present from China on the side. Okay. This is because this site was injected. Okay. Now let me explain what that means. When you interact with a website, the only way that you can be interactive is through form fields. Okay. These form fields, you type stuff in, and if it is a well-formed application, it will take what you typed and it will put it through a little test. Go, is this expected? Is there anything weird in here? Does this look like some kind of attack I've ever seen? Okay, go ahead. Database, what are they asking for? Okay. Well, if it is not a well-formed app, you can put structured query language commands directly into those form fields. Okay. SQL, structured query language, and talk directly to the database. And this happens all the time. Hundreds of thousands of sites per day get smacked by this. And again, you can make the database barf up its contents, or worse, you can inject something into it such that the next visitor comes by, hits the object to which you're attached, and they get the present. Okay. So here's what it does. Here's a redirect. So, a couple of victims here at 156.74 went out to go visit 31.11 out there, and immediately were reflected back to these other sites, right? So our victim computers here think they're just talking to the website they went to. They don't know this other thing is going on in the background. And look at all the places that this thing redirected to. So that's another way that they can smack your computer. Sometimes this is called drive-by malware. All right. And now the biggie. And we're going to spend a lot of time talking about this. And we have a bunch of examples of bait that are designed to take your password away from you. This is a couple of years old, but the data still hold. This is from Microsoft. And you see the top line there and how it's increasing. And you see the bottom line, how it's gone down. So the top line is sites that are designed to look like Microsoft or SharePoint or some Microsoft product and prompt you for a password. And we've all seen these things, right? But look at that rise in the number of those sites versus the drop in sites that push malware on you. Okay. So, and one of those ways is through that SQL injection technique. So this is less prevalent than it was in terms of, drive-by malware sites, but man, are they after your passwords. Okay. And why is that? Because the control that will reliably fail is the one between your ears, for real. Okay. Well, what are they doing? Okay. Well, if they can get your password, clearly they can walk right into your network. What if they have a whole bunch of passwords? Because I know you've all read that there have been these gigantic disclosures of passwords. Yahoo lost all of its passwords right before they got acquired, and it crushed their valuation. Bad on you, Yahoo. One thing you can do if you get a copy of these, and we have them, lots of people have them, there's about 3.8 billion of them out there. And occasionally they're associated with usernames. So, for example, in the Yahoo dump. So if I have a username from Yahoo and a password, and I can map that username to your business account, I can try that same password. Okay. So that kind of password guessing, that's one way that this can be used. But that's kind of slow. It's been automated, and it's something called credential stuffing. And it works in a couple of ways, right? We would just try password, 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 password on your account, and maybe we'll get it. The more clever way to do that is you take all of your users and you try password number 1 on every user. Doesn't work. Try password number 2 on every user in succession. Doesn't work. By the time you get to password 762, you're going to get a hit. And the bonus there is nobody got 3 password failures within 5 minutes. And so nobody gets locked out of an account. Nobody raises their hand and says something weird is going on. So that's credential stuffing. And there's other variations of this, but this is why credentials, your passwords, they are super valuable, and you gotta take care of passwords. Don't reuse them in other places. Definitely don't reuse them in other places. And in fact, we'll talk a lot about passwords and credentials at the end in something called multi-factor authentication and how that makes everything better. All right, now let's get into the good stuff, the examples. Bait. Okay, so this one happens a lot. You get some piece of email. I didn't know I used Norton antivirus. Wow, and it's not working anymore. Well, I better renew that. Well, this one just wants to get your credit card. And especially more elderly users that are not as familiar with the way computers and networks and contracts with antivirus vendors, and they don't even know what came on their computer. It comes so loaded up with all that junk when you get a new computer. They're going to pay it, or they think they're going to pay it. What they're doing is giving away a credit card. So it's good to help to message our like my mom is 82, and I only let her have a tablet and nothing else. But it's good to have a discussion about fakery like this with parents, grandparents. This is real popular right now. And interestingly, this one combines a couple of techniques here. Number one, it's got a financial aspect to it, and where you may get a financial something from this. And it's also having to do with COVID. And so when there's something in the news that causes a lot of anxiety or a lot of interest, it gets weaponized. And this is one of the reasons Checkpoint says all the numbers are up 40%, is because this kind of bait has been making the rounds everywhere. So you look at this, and first thing that should come to your mind is what happens when you click here? Well, it's going to ask you for a password. What are you going to do? Stop. Look very carefully at what's in front of you. Ask a question if you need to. Is this real? Before you proceed, because anytime something pops up and asks you for a password and you did not expect it, cease what you're doing. Remember, they're after your credentials. They're after your passwords. Keep that in mind all the time. Okay. And the COVID stuff, it's, when they started to develop these apps, that would tell you if you had been in proximity with any other person, that had been diagnosed or tested positive or whatever, we knew that this was going to get gamed. All right. I mean, even the suggestion that these apps were going to be out there. So this came in a text message, not an app like we have one in Washington. A message from that would come in from the app, not in a text message. So anytime you get a text message out of the blue you didn't expect, can't explain why you got it, it's fake. First thing you should think, this is fake. Okay. And this exploitation of anxiety, just be aware that that's a tactic. Banking, I'm not going to get into too much detail with this because At this point, everybody should really be aware that your banking password is super valuable to criminals. Okay. Anytime something asks you for a banking password, and you did not expect it, right? So, like, this thing is using a technique here of a sense of urgency, right? Your message, your secure message expires, and note the format of the date there. That's, I don't know, maybe that's a legit format or something, but this is fake. And when you click here, it's going to ask you for a password. And because it's your bank, even though you may be expecting it, stop what you're doing and take a real hard look, right? Where did that click take you? What site are you on? Right? Look at it very carefully. Banking password, always suspect, always. Okay, here's an example of business email compromise. And this is one of the low end things that I talked about. And so this came to me, and it came from Garrett Silver, our CEO. He is our CEO. He is not chief_exec.officer1 at AOL.com. I can assure you. Um, I'm actually surprised AOL still exists, but setting that aside. So, Michael, I'm arranging some gifts for the staffs. Okay, that's a grammatical tell right there. That is closer to the kind of grammatical construct that you would use in the UK, India, somewhere in West Africa. Okay. So, okay, that's fishy right off the bat, but the sender is giving it away here. Okay. But because I know that guy in that security awareness training told me one of the things that happens is somebody who says they're the CEO asked to buy gift cards, I'm going to treat this as fake. And if we combine a couple of things, and this is just a quick aside, right? We talked about vulnerabilities. So here's a vulnerability. This was a great one. You could make a fake domain name that looks like a real domain name, but use a Cyrillic I instead of an actual I, right? So like criticalinsight.com, but use a Cyrillic I, and there's a way to do that. And not only would it let you send in convincing looking email like it came from internal to the network, but it fooled Outlook, and Outlook would put the actual picture of the person being impersonated in the message, lending it even more authenticity, right? I need you to buy gift cards. Oh, it's coming from Garrett. Oh, from inside our domain. This was a bad one. This is now cleaned up. I just wanted to make a quick aside there, right? So the technology's working against you as well as the bad guys. Okay, here's one against a healthcare organization. This didn't work because they know they don't do capital calls. So they thought this was fake. What do you think happens when you hit view attachments? It's going to ask you for a password. What are you going to do? Stop. Look real hard. Who's it from? Did I expect it? Who is this from? Some Yahoo in Knoxville, Tennessee. This must be fake. Okay, there's information in front of you to tell you that things are fake, right? And you're getting some familiarity with the tactics right now. It's not just email. Here's Facebook. Okay, now where's the giveaway here? Dear Facebook user. Okay, now I dumped Facebook a long time ago. My fascination with Facebook lasted about 8 minutes. But from what I remember, they're supposed to know your name. Okay, dear Facebook user, all right, update your Facebook account, want your Facebook password, probably so it can use Facebook to message all of your friends and start compromising them as well. All right. How about Twitter? Yeah, here's please verify your password. Okay. This is probably not surprising that fake stuff like this happens, but the tell here is at the top up in the URL. You can see that the domain name there, if you look at it fast, that might look like Twitter, but it's not. Okay. And then here's the one on the right. Hi, dear user. Okay. Twitter should know your handle. All right. You've committed copyright infringement. Okay. Uh, uh, kind of a quasi threat there, right? Sense of urgency. And they want you to appeal this by going to sites.google.com. What? Twitter doesn't use sites.google.com to collect appeals from people being accused of copyright infringement. This doesn't look right. Hi, dear user. They should know your handle. Okay. The tell is in front of you. Fake voicemail. I would say voicemail is always fake. But look who this is addressed to. Okay, that's not me. That's not you. That's not anybody. That's kind of crazy. And but look what it says. You missed a call from 0773. So somebody in Nigeria wants to call back. All right. All right. The information's in front of you to tell you do not open this. This could be attached malware. This could be, take you to a password page. We don't know because we don't open this stuff. I do save it to show you though. Okay. All right. This is a tactic you'll see a lot increasingly now too. The fuzzed out document back there. All right. So for the 8 people on Earth that actually have Adobe Doc passwords, they are at high risk here. Dropbox. Okay. What do you think happens when you hit download documents? You're going to be asked for a password. Stop, look real hard, ask a question of someone if you need to. Who is Terry McMakin? PocketInet.net. And look who it's to. It's to nobody. Okay. That means everybody is on the BCC line. So, look at the unspecificity of the attachment, do invoices.pdf. Well, that's pretty generic there. But when you don't see anybody on the to line, this is fake. Okay. Something that's going to ask you for a password, that's what's going to happen when you click that. Right away, your radar goes up and you look real hard at this message header and you will delete this and move on. You have a capital N new file sent to you via share dash point. Nobody calls it share dash point. Okay. Who is this to? Nobody. Okay. Everybody's on the BCC. Looks like it came from fax something or other. So somebody sent you a fax over SharePoint, right? And the tell here is really just share dash point, the poor capitalization, the fact that there's no one on the to line, the tells are here. Use of urgency. Okay, so this is actually my OG account. I've had this since late 80s, and it's a real attractor. All right, so here they're telling me they're going to lock me out of my email account, okay, which just makes me laugh. But up at the top, round cube, ROUN, no D. Down at the bottom, the logo does have the D. It's ignoring this. It says ignoring this message will cause your email to be terminated without your ignoring this will cause nothing to happen. Okay, take a real good look at this one. Someone just logged into your Zoom account from a new device, from this Galaxy S20, okay? Hey, is this you? So what do you think happens when you click on either one of those buttons? You go straight to training because this is a phishing test. I actually perform what's called virtual CISO duties for a couple of corporations, and this is one for their internal testing here. And the only thing that gave this away to me, I almost checked this out, but Zoom at securityadmin.net doesn't map to the Zoom team to me. So what I did was I asked a question. And they said, oh, we didn't get you. Okay. So little tells on here, anything that you think is fishy, it's a real good idea to hold up. Let me ask somebody. Okay. And then here's a couple of these. I realize that media literacy is not real high in the United States right now. But when you see offers like this, and you've never heard of anything like this before, there's no reason to just believe it. Check it out. Do a little Googling or something like this. Now, the one on the left, that went straight to malware. That one was a malware pusher. The one on the right signs you up for a whole bunch of insurance brokers that are going to market to you forever. Equally bad, in my opinion. Okay, so what was wrong? Okay, your real name was not used. Dear Facebook user, okay? There's something called a reply to address, which is more used in scams, and I'm going to show you some scams in a minute, so that it looks like it came from somebody legit, like from the United Nations. But you go reply, well, it's going back to Gmail. That's a reply to address, always a giveaway. If there's nobody on the to line, it all went to BCC. It didn't come to you. It came to you and 1,000 other people. And we've actually caught. Some of these have gone out and they forgot to use BCC, and they were clearly alphabetical. There was, I think, 500 of them in each message. And so, right, this is a tactic. Okay, grammar and spelling, although they're starting to hire consultants so that they can do a better job with that. They're looking for native English speakers. They're actually advertising for them. Um, if you
Well, I
have,
mean, it's so easy to hire right now. I'm sure they'll be able to find them.
oh, hugely. Well, native English speakers or ones that are good with grammar, because those aren't necessarily the same. And moving on, if you have the proper controls in place, your email should be showing you this banner going, hey, it looks like it came from a guy we know, but this came from outside the organization. Okay. Pay attention to that banner. That means something. Okay. But most of all, stuff comes in and you didn't expect it. Ask yourself frequently, why is some internet rando sending me this? And you will save yourself and your organization. Okay, just a little bit about some phone stuff, okay? Because here's another thing that's more along the vocabulary, but I thought I'd point this out because it's starting to show up more and more. Um, uh, SIM swapping. Okay, so this is the chip in your phone that identifies your phone as yours, maps it to a phone number, and connects it to the cell phone network, right? Well, let's say that I can call up AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, whoever, and convince them that I am you. And and I can find your last four of your social. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff out there on the dark web and other places, and password dumps and all kinds of places. It's pretty easy to do. So I can convince them I'm you, and I say, well, I was going across Puget Sound and I was taking a picture of Mount Rainier from the ferry, and I dropped my phone, and it's 900 feet deep in the bottom of Puget Sound, and this is my new phone, and I need you to hook this up to my old phone number. And they'll go, okay. And this has worked a lot. All of a sudden, I'm holding your phone. I am holding your phone. I'm holding your phone that gets that second code when you go to log into your bank, for example. It's been used a lot to hijack these cryptocurrency wallets. And turns out very young people have made a lot of money by doing this. So the take home here, if your phone ever stops working, call the phone company right away. Find a phone, call the phone company right away. And anymore, phone companies they're onto this. If you ever sign your SIM card to a new phone, you will get an email. If your SIM card changes, and I haven't done that, I assume you will still get an email from your phone company. But pay attention to this. Your phone quits working, you may have been SIM swapped. Yes, malware can go from your phone to your PC. It's exotic. It doesn't happen very often. But in a world where there's lots of spare technical people all over the world who are writing bad code, this is something that is ticking up. The good thing is it doesn't go the other. Oh, yeah, it does. It goes the other way. Well, the way to avoid this is by not plugging your phone into your computer. And so if you come into work and you need power on your phone, it's a real good idea to use, a wall adapter. Also be aware that the power charging stations in airports, you don't have any idea what technology is on the other side of that USB port. And in fact, there are 59 companies that have been sanctioned by the US because they put surveillance technology in the stuff they sell us. I'm not saying that that's what's deployed in an airport, but just be aware. The more control you can have over your phone, and the fewer things you plug it into, the better off you're going to be. Okay, phone apps. Okay, yeah, everybody downloading willy-nilly all these phone apps, and turns out that Google, Apple in particular, have to remove thousands of these every week. They come in, they're booby trapped, they are privacy killers, they track you, they can hit ad networks in the background so that someone is getting paid for the ad view. You are paying for the transmission of all that traffic. So here's what you do. If you think you want to download one of these apps, how long has it been in the store? How many people have downloaded it? What have they said about it? Do you really need it? Is there something else maybe that's been there longer and is more reliable? Just be aware this stuff is out there all the time in the app stores. Removable media. I don't know how this got lumped into phones, but here we go. So be aware, the USB stick that your teenagers are taking to high school should never be touched. They should never be plugged into a work computer, and frankly, they should never be plugged into anything but your kid's computer. Um, what we do, as Jake explained, is we are a combination of managed security. We monitor your network and kick the bad guys out, and professional services. And one of the professional services that we do a lot is penetration testing. We break into networks. Okay. And if we've exhausted every method we have, we know we can throw infected USB sticks in your parking lot and wait, because some good Samaritan is going to come along and they're really going to want to find out who owns that thing so they can give it back, or they just want to see what's on it. Okay. So, especially for business, using dedicated devices rather than whatever you can find, and especially if it's your kids, don't jack those into the computer. Okay, my favorite part, miscellaneous threats. And let me just do a quick time check. Yeah, we're doing all right here, and my phone's going nuts. And I know it's because there's probably some Teams meeting going on, and they're all chatting because we have a culture like that. Anyway, okay, so this is called, you may think of this as the Nigerian prince scam, okay? But it's got a lot of names. Nigerian 419. 419 is statutory code in Nigeria for fraud, which is what this is, okay? It's called advance fee because it's offering you something of great value. Sounds too good to be true, because it is. And what's going to happen is they're going to start asking you for money. The money will only go one way, from you to them. So here's Sergeant Andrew Chandler. 2. Who's it to? Recipients. Okay, dead giveaway. Mill.org, 2 L's. That doesn't sound very military to me. It sounds like wheat production. Kindly accept my apology for sending you this. Dear friend, doesn't know my name. Okay. So this is pretty easy to suss out, right? It's crazy. People get sucked into this. And the problem is, psychologically, after you have been into this for a while and you've established a relationship, and sometimes it's romantic, and sometimes it's somebody's trying to give away their fortune before they die of cancer. There's lots of variations on this, right? Here's another one right here. Here's a guy that Godwin Jack wanted to invest in our business. Okay. We actually had fun with Godwin Jack until he found out exactly what we do. And then he just kind of went away. But so here's another variant of this, right? And who's it to? Information. Wow, there's no one in specific there. This actually did come into our information page. And we believe this guy has come back. Actually, we have another example of something like this. So here's one more. Jeff Bezos knows me. Who knew? And he's actually going by Sergeant Ken.Miller at Gmail, which is a little surprising. Dear friend, doesn't know my name. 2 undisclosed recipients. Well, I have this ATM card with 1.9 million on it. And as soon as you correspond back to old Sergeant Ken Jeff Bezos here, he's going to say, look, the shipping fee for this card is $350. Send us 350, cards on its way. A lot of people are going to suck into that. Here is where I have a slight suspicion that Godwin Jack was coming back, because it also came into our info address here. So William Faulkner at MSN.com represents a publicly traded company in the cybersecurity acquisition arena. Well, apparently the publicly traded company doesn't have their own email server or domain name, because MSN is a weird place to come from. So this comes into our info address, and this is received by, I don't know, 9 really paranoid people. So first we check out, William Faulkner here. What we find out is there was a William Faulkner who did mergers and acquisitions for a mining company in the Midwest 20 years ago and is probably deceased now. So this person has actually done some patina of research to provide a little bit of credibility here as to, yeah, I really do mergers and acquisitions, thinking we'd Google him real quick and call it good. So, we can blow this stuff up, but, the suspicion here is, again, this is going to be, we need you to set up a data room here, and we have to do it on our system, and you got to pay for it. And, it's just going to be one-way money flow. Okay. Use of threats. All right. Threats. Hey, there's a lawsuit here. You never knew about this before. But there is a lawsuit here, and you are in this for $2,500. And then it says your balance was $698. So I don't know how most of that got paid. But if you want to clear this, send us $300 today. We'll close this paid in full. A lot of people get scared by this, and they will do it. Okay. But when it's addressed to no one or to Ace Cash Services, right? And then everybody else is on BCC. Um, the technique here is called spray and pray. You may have heard of that, right? This is just a shotgun blast that goes out over the internet. Okay, computer support scam pops up. Hey, you got full of viruses. Nope, that site's been injected. All you do is close the tab and move on. If you call that number, they're going to start messing around with your computer. They will have you connect to a service. They will connect to your computer. They'll run fake tools, and they'll say, oh, looks like your maintenance contract has lapsed. Would you like to renew it? No. Work at home scams. So when we are in times of more economic turmoil, these work better and are more prevalent. So the way these work, secret shopper, be our secret, agent, whatever. What they're going to do is they're going to send you a check. And that check is going to be for some amount of money that they think is probably in your banking account. And they're going to say, okay, deposit the check. And you trot it on down to the bank, and that's a real bank routing number. So you deposit the check, and they say, okay, now you have 1850 more in your account than you did when you walked in the door. Great. And they say, okay, well, here's your job. You got to go out and you got to go to a restaurant, have a meal, write a report. And they say, here's a gym we want you to go to. Go out, get a workout, write a report. Okay, and then whatever's left over, keep $300 and then wire the rest back to this Western Union address and write a report on Western Union customer service. And then a couple of days later, if you do all that, your bank calls and they say, well, yeah, the bank routing number was real, but that was a forged check. And we got to take that money back out of your account. So effectively, you have wired away your own money. So there's a couple of tells on the check, right? Upper left, Portland, Oregon. Okay. Top center, US Bancorp, not US Bancorp. So don't get sucked into these things. These secret shopper, be our agent thing. These are not real. Okay, let's go just through some do's and don'ts here because that part had to come. And don't go willy-nilly clicking every link, right? Remember the compromised websites, the ones that have been injected, the ones that smack you from the side, you don't know what's going on. If you have all that stuff coming in your personal email and you're using personal email at work, you're doing it wrong, right? Because that's where that stuff is going to be. Where you work pays for your email to lose all the bad attachments, the bad links, etc. The phishing site links, all that stuff is laundered out as best as possible. So don't follow every link and look at that last bullet. Ideally, all your personal use should be on a personal device, like mine over here that won't shut up, right? That's where Gmail lives. That's where Facebook lives if you're a Facebook user, not on your work computer. If you do that, you're making 40% of the problem go away. And I have numbers to support that we won't go into, and they've been validated by other studies, but that takes out 40% of the problem. So, and hopefully what you take away from this is you become more resistant to the bait. Okay. All right. Also, there are going to be security controls in place. For example, you hit the big red page that says, hey, we don't like this site. Do not go forward. Well, don't circumvent that and go forward and go around that control right there. It's trying to tell you something. Your curiosity is a good thing to have, but the application of curiosity when the thing is telling you this is going to be bad is probably something you should pay attention to. Okay. Reusing your passwords on public services. If you have a single password that you change everywhere every quarter, you might think you're doing it right. You're doing it wrong. Don't use the same password in places. In fact, we'll talk in a minute about passwords in a little more detail. Don't leave your laptop in the car and go in Starbucks. Don't do that. That's actually for one of my sales guys because that happened. Multi-factor authentication. Let's just talk about this for just a second. So what multi-factor authentication is, is a combination of things that you can use to prove that you are who you say you are. Okay. There are only three things. One is something you know. That's your password. One is something you have, which can be your phone. It can be something called an authentication token. Okay. And the third one is something you are. So your iris print, your palm print. This is how we had to get into the emergency operations center in the city of Seattle when it snowed 2 inches and the city became paralyzed. Okay. Multi-factor authentication is your friend. Why? Because your passwords are under attack. And if you are using multi-factor authentication, it doesn't matter if somebody gets your password, right? We have to plan on people doing dumb things, getting fooled, giving up passwords, making mistakes. We have to plan on that. And if you use multi-factor authentication, I use it with Gmail. I can give you my Gmail password and it will do you no good. Okay. And the other one is full disk encryption, because that laptop that you left in the car, if the disk is fully encrypted, that's a tree falling in the forest and all you've lost is a piece of hardware. Okay. Those are real good things. But more important than anything, if you see something, say something. Hey, my computer's acting weird. And um, I got this COVID bulletin and I went to go get it and I gave it my password, but then nothing happened, right? Anything like that happens, tell somebody, right? You should have a help desk or an IT person or somebody you can raise your hand to. All right, now just a little teeny bit on OPSEC. And let's start with how you manage your passwords. So this is a very famous cartoon. The name of the cartoon strip is called XKCD, and xkcd.com is a site that if you visit, you will never leave. The gentleman that does this cartoon, I think, has degrees in mathematics, physics, and philosophy, or something like that. He's really, really interesting guy, but he makes great technology points, and here's one. The way that we have been told to create passwords over the years, upper, lower, number, special character, blah, 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 okay, is really hard to remember. And it turns out if it's, even, I don't know, 9 or 10 characters long, um, it can still, with today's computing power, be guessed by just throwing every combination of letters at it until you get it. Okay. When you compare that to a pass phrase, which can be a sentence, the first sentence in a book, it can be 4 words that you remember, it can be person, woman, man, camera, TV, right? I mean, those are all great pass phrases, and those are easy to remember. And it takes a really long time to what's called brute force that. Throw all those combinations of letters and characters until finally you get it. Okay. So, I would recommend against using correct horse battery staple because this is now in the password guessing dictionaries because everybody knows this. That's how famous this are. But again, multi-factor authentication is your friend. And these password vaults, LastPass, Dashlane, there's a whole bunch of these. These are really, really good to use because that way you can create any insanely, lengthy, gross password you want. You will never have to remember it. It'll remember it for you. Okay. Um, your home, since we are all now pandemic workers, or for the most part, a lot of people are and spending at least some of the time, in your hybrid office at home, your home is now part of the attack surface of your organization. They can get to your company, your government agency, your port, your whatever, by coming in through your home. So your home network security is now in scope. So just a couple of things. If your home Wi-Fi password is the name of your dog, you're doing it wrong. You need to do something about that. If your internet router, right, or cable modem is open to the internet for administrative login for whatever reason, you decided, you had to be home help desk. And if you were at a conference in a hotel and somebody called and you had to check something out, you could get to it remotely. No, don't do that. Do not leave those open for admin to the global internet, because commodity equipment like this also gets vulnerabilities just like Microsoft Exchange. And when they do, they are compromised very quickly. And it is a tactic of Chinese actors that they launch attacks from compromised home equipment. Okay. So very important. put a little thought into your home network security. Your organization may even give you some tips on this. It also has to do with, again, removable media. Don't pick up your kid's USB stick and use it. Don't do that. Okay. Behavior of other people in the network. If possible, it's good to segregate your workspace on the home network from everybody else. And there are devices to do that. We use a Ubiquity device to do exactly that, segregate our analysts while they work in a remote setting. Okay, so at home. And then finally, when you are in public, just a reminder, don't talk about company stuff and secrets and government stuff going on, things you might not want to see in the paper. If you do get on an airplane, number one, be really cool to the flight attendants because they've been taking a beating. But use one of these privacy screens, right? You can put this on a laptop so you can't see it from the side or like from behind, things like that, but you can see it. Those work really well. And then if you're in an airport, this evil twin attack where you think you're connecting to free airport Wi-Fi, but you're connecting to someone's laptop who's going to trap everything you do before sending it off to the real Wi-Fi access point. Be aware that those are out there. I have seen these in SeaTac Airport, so this is a real thing. Okay, and with that, Jake, back to you.
Thanks, Mike. And I got to tell you, I was just at a coffee shop the other day and somebody was trying to buy something and, the person on the other line couldn't hear them. They were reading their credit card number and they kept getting louder and they read it 3 times and everyone was looking around like, is this for real? So
don't be that guy.
Don't be that person. All right. So I'm going to put the survey link in the chat. I totally recognize that it is ironic to do a segment here or do an hour on don't click that link and then give you a link. But trust me, which is also what a bad guy would say. But it's an office.com link. Please take the survey. We want your opinions. At the end of the survey, there's a chance where you can get a gift card. You can donate it to a charity, and we would really, really appreciate it. Also, this is not boring, so invite all your friends. As Joe says there, this is one of the best cybersecurity awareness trainings. Yes, there is no falling asleep here. That does not happen. I do want to introduce you to one other person. Hey, Madison, can you pop on stage for a second? So Mike and I are, we get slammed with emails and stuff. Some of you will hear from Madison. That's Madison. I wanted you to know she's a real person, even though her background is not real. That's not what her house looks like. But Madison's a real person. So if you're Madison, that's who she is. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Please fill out that survey. Please don't click bad links. Only click links that come from us. And have a good day.
Bye-bye. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Be safe.